HCGChica. I came on today to talk about reason number one that I had come up with for failing on the HCG diet, at least temporarily, or cheating a lot, things like that. That first reason that I had talked about in the overview video, which if you haven't seen that, it covers 6 different reasons that I kind of observed or saw in myself or others as reasons for kind of temporarily failing on the diet. I'll link to that video in the description below. The first reason was basically not having a clear idea of what the HCG diet really involves, and just realizing once you were into it that it's harder than you first thought. Now, in talking about this reason, it's going to be focused more on the mental and emotional aspect of it. There's also an aspect to being prepared for the diet, which involves just knowing the actual rules of the diet and how it works. And that's important too, but that's not what this particular video is about. I'm going to give you a couple examples just to show why this protocol can be more difficult than other diets, and some of the solutions, some of the things that you might be able to try, things that have worked for me, things that have worked for others to help you get through that. So the first example that I thought of was actually about myself. This was actually my last round 5, and I don't know about you guys, but I like cashews. But I don't necessarily think cashews are like something that I have to have. I like cashews, but I don't have to have them. Anyway, about halfway into phase 2 on the diet, on HCG, there were some cashews in the house, and all of a sudden those cashews seemed like the thing that I wanted most in the world to eat, and I couldn't have them. Obviously, I'm on VLCD. I can't have the cashews, and they were so tempting, and it just, for some reason, they just seemed like they'd be so satisfying. And I did give in and cheat and eat a bunch of cashews, and of course it totally wasn't worth it. 15 minutes later I was like, oh, why did I do that? But I just want to give an example showing how when you're on phase 2, the foods that you have access to are so minimal, the amounts you're eating is so tiny, and all of a sudden things that are usually not tempting for you can all of a sudden, be hard to stay away from. The second example I want to give is just say you go to a social gathering while you're on HCG, and there's all kinds of food. Maybe it's a picnic at a park. There's just tons of different foods. It's a potluck. And normally if you were on any other diet, perhaps a low carb diet or a high fiber diet or a certain calorie diet, there'd be certain things that you couldn't have, right? Most likely all the potato salad and chips and all that type of stuff, you'd be like, oh, I can't have that. But no doubt there'd be other things you could eat, like you could fill up on meat and salad, or perhaps you might be able to bring your own alternative baked goods, that have xylitol and almond flour instead of wheat and sugar. So you would still have things that you could have there that would be satisfying, that you could fill up on. However, when you're on HCG, you go to that same gathering, and now not only can you not have the potato salad and the chips and the pasta salad and all that stuff and the cake and all that, you also can't have the meat or the salad or anything that's on that table. And you can't bring your own alternative baked goods because you can't have that either. So with HCG, it's just the food is so tiny and just hardly anything. It can be really difficult when you do normal day-to-day things or things that normally you would enjoy, that you might have to make certain choices if you were on another diet, but you could still make adjustments so that you didn't feel deprived. In this case, sometimes it really can be challenging because, like I said, you can't have any of that stuff, and you can't even really bring a whole lot. Pretty much all you're going to be able to bring is 100 grams of chicken and some chopped up cucumber with some salt. Now, I'm not saying that none of the meals on HCG ever taste good. There are some great phase 2 cookbooks out there that show you how to make really tasty meals. But I'm just trying to be honest with you guys that this can really be challenging, and you might not realize just how challenging until you get on it and you attempt to do something like that. And if you go through that, you can find that it can be really taxing It can be really taxing on you mentally and emotionally if you have too many situations where you end up, being in a little bind like that. You might come home later and just feel really deprived, and all of a sudden the diet feels really hard. And then what if you wake up the next morning, you were good, you stuck to protocol, and you're like, yeah, and you wake up the next morning, and then you didn't even lose weight that day, or something like that. That happens all the time. And so I'm just trying to present to you guys, for any of you who are new to the protocol and haven't done it yet, these are real scenarios that can happen, that can, for some, cause enough frustration that you could either end up cheating or quitting. So I just want to make it clear that, while this protocol is very fast compared to other diets, it's definitely not easy, in my opinion. There's certainly times when it's easy, but there are going to be a lot of times when it's rather difficult. I'm not trying to paint, like a somber picture of doing the HCG diet or anything. There are many, many people out there doing this diet successfully and doing well while on it, and it's not torture. So for sure, a lot of people are successful. But I am just trying to bring an element of just realism, just so that people aren't thinking it's easier than it really is. Because if you kind of prepare yourself mentally for that, sometimes that will make it a little easier once those hardships do occur to go through them, because you were kind of already mentally prepared, to experience that. So now let's talk about solutions, ideas, how to make this protocol doable despite, those hardships. I'll mention the number one thing that I have found is important to my own personal success on the diet. For others, this may be different. For me, the number one important thing to remember is to not have anything major going on during a round of HCG, which means I have to plan in advance. I have to look at my calendar and have to make sure I'm not going on vacation, or that I don't have 4 anniversary parties to go to, just different things like that. I have to make sure that those types of things are either happening before I go on the diet or after. Not everyone may find these types of situations difficult on the diet, but I personally do. What happens is these types of situations are just so mentally and emotionally taxing for me that even if I get through them without cheating, I will find that later when I go home or the next day that I'll just be spent inside. There just will be nothing left inside me, and then I will end up cheating, because I just feel so horrible after the fact. So that's been one of the keys for me to be successful. So at times, I have allowed myself to go through these types of situations when on the diet, but later I would suffer the consequences. I would have bad cravings. I would want to cheat. I'd want to give up. And it was so difficult. And, as you know, unlike other diets, you can't really just take 1 or 2 days off to recover and then, get back on. It's really not something that's good to do on this protocol. So for me, I realized that that's just something that I have to plan in advance for, and kind of, clear my social calendar for that period of time, or, maybe wait a little longer than I would normally have waited to do a round. Maybe I want to lose weight right now, and, I'm like anxious to get it off, because I know that feeling. You're anxious to get started, but you have a cruise coming up in 10 days, or, or a bunch of parties or something like that. In that case, if you can, it would be better to wait until after those things are over and start your round then. The other thing is what defines tempting to you normally may be very different from what's tempting to you on phase 2. It's kind of amazing, kind of like my little cashew experience. It's pretty amazing how many more things all of a sudden become tempting when you're on the diet. And once you allow yourself to get to that point of having those kinds of cravings and just finding the protocol really difficult, your chances of cheating or quitting go up. And so I find that it's just better to avoid as much as humanly possible. Of course, you can't control everything, but it's best to avoid as much as possible those types of situations that are going to cause you to feel that way on the protocol. So I think one of the most important things to kind of recognize about this protocol is just that it can be hard. And by realizing that it's hard, you then want to try to make as many life adjustments that you can to make the protocol as doable for you personally. Like I said, of course you cannot control all your circumstances. You can't control if your kids get sick and you have to go to the ER. You can't control, other family things that happen. But whatever you can do, you can certainly, there are certain things that you can do to minimize situations that you do have control over, and that can really help. So in my mind, I think this can be kind of sometimes difficult for us to accept. It's been difficult for me to accept. I kind of think of it as being modest, and it's kind of the opposite of what we learn just kind of out there in the world. I feel like we're raised to try to think we can do everything, and of course you always want to do your best, but we get driven to just keep going and going and be that superhuman person, and think that, I can be strong no matter what, I can handle anything, And sometimes I think that guidance can be a little misguided, because then you might end up feeling guilty when you get into certain situations that you don't handle well, and it keeps happening over and over, and then you just feel like a failure. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle everything or any type of situation successfully, on this diet? So I just think that if you take that kind of mentality too far, it can get you into trouble. So to me, I think it's more about if you really accept that you're not Superwoman or you're not Superman, and then because you are aware of that and you accept it, you make certain changes or adjustments in your life accordingly while you're on the diet. I just feel that the majority will have a higher chance of succeeding on the protocol if they're able to do that. I thought of this illustration. I don't know if you guys are gonna think it's stupid. Maybe it is. I don't know. It just came to me the other day when I was writing this article. I kind of thought about this story where you and several other people are going to run in a marathon, and you're each gonna have like your own trail out in the woods somewhere. You're all gonna have your own trail. The winner it's gonna be timed, so the winner is whoever's fastest. And the trails are all overgrown, tons of bushes and trees and leaves and all kinds of stuff. And you're told that you can groom the trail in advance if you like. Before it's like, it's a week before the race. You're allowed to groom the trail in advance, but you don't have to. So all the other people groom their trail, but you look at it and you're like, I'll just bring my machete and I'll do it then, and it'll be fine. I don't think it's that big a deal. So, then the day of the race comes and you get ready, you start, and you have your machete with you, and what you realize is, you start running, but then you have to stop every 15 seconds to cut a bush down or some tree or something like that, and then also the machete is really heavy and you're trying to run with it. And you just, soon enough, you find that you're not going to get to the end of that race anytime soon, if you ever get there, just because you didn't create a pathway that was going to make it easy for you to do what you were supposed to be doing, which was running. So in this case, just apply that to the HCG diet. If you try to prepare in advance for what to expect, and clear your calendar of whatever you can, realizing that this can be hard and that you need to get to the end of it, that I feel can really be the difference, between failing or succeeding. And it's not that you won't, succeed on the HCG diet in the long run if you do make mistakes. Many of us, like I said, have made mistakes and we have achieved success in the long run. But if you're able to kind of approach this in advance by planning ahead and accepting your limitations, I just think you can achieve your success in less time, with less heartache and less strain on your body by doing that, by accepting those limitations and making those adjustments. All right, so I wanted to talk next about just maybe some more practical ways to do what we just talked about. Because there are some questions that can come up, when it comes to buying out that time to do the protocol and taking away from other things. The first suggestion was kind of already tied up with what we discussed, which is basically to plan your round of HCG in advance. I have felt this way before, and so I'm sure that many of you have too. You get to a point where you just feel like, I'm so fat, or I'm so overweight, and I'm so sick of it, and I want to lose the weight now. And you order your HCG and you want to start tomorrow or in 3 days, or sometimes I get emails, how fast can I get it? And I understand the mentality there, because just emotionally you're just sick of being a certain way. But you don't want to make that decision to the exclusion of looking at the logical side of things, for all the reasons that we just discussed. Because again, you will have better chance of success if you plan in advance and try to clear your social calendar as much as possible. Now, some things, you don't have control over. It's like, your son's graduating from high school and 10 of his other friends are graduating. You're going to go to 10 different high school graduation parties, in June or July. That may be a bad time to do HCG, and as much as you want to lose weight, maybe you'll be mentally and emotionally strong enough to get through it, but I have seen from myself and others that many of us are not, So maybe it's better to just do the party thing for the month of June and July and wait and start your round in August or September when you know things are going to settle down. So now the second practical way that we can go about planning ahead, and giving ourselves that time that we're going to need on the protocol is to minimize the guilt of kind of disappearing from the social scene for a little bit. And so I thought of a couple ways that you can do this logically. Sometimes we worry about hurting our family's feelings or our friends' feelings if we're not able to get together with them, or we don't want to go out for a beer and chips or on the protocol, something like that. So there's two things you can do. You can do both. One idea is to get together with as many people as you can before you start your round. So you plan ahead, you have your round planned to start in a month or two, and get together with friends and family, or an anniversary's coming up for someone, do that party, have it before. Get together with those people so that they're taken care of, you've taken care of their feelings, and they're emotionally happy with you. And so that way, when you go on the protocol, you're not going to be feeling guilty, like, oh, there's all these people that I need to see that I haven't seen in a long time, or they're asking to get together with me. So get together with as many people as you can beforehand. The other thing you can do is to make definite plans to get together with these different people after the protocol's over. So, when you're getting ready to start your round, you might call somebody up and be like, hey, let's get together on August 15th, after your round ends or whatever, and, go out and have some chips and beer or whatever. Just make those definite plans, and that way you've taken care of your friends and family. They have that definite plan. They know they're getting together with you. And so again, that's just trying to, minimize guilt that you might have. Not that you should feel guilty. We all deserve to take out time that we need for ourselves. But just because I know as humans that we do that, we care about the people in our lives. We don't want to hurt their feelings. And sometimes situations like that can bring, scenarios like that up. So those are just two ways that I thought of to help make it easier for you personally when you're on the protocol to not feel like you're slighting anyone or leaving someone out or hurting someone's feelings. Of course, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but hopefully those are just a couple good ideas that you could employ to, make your actual round of HCG a little more seamless. So the third practical way to deal with the kind of mental aspect of this diet is to stay busy and productive with other endeavors. When you're on HCG, since you spend so much less time eating than you used to, you need to fill that time now. You need to fill that time with something else that makes you feel productive and satisfied. Because if you don't, you're going to be sitting there, just sitting around wishing you could eat. And you may feel that anyway. I mean, that's just something that we're all going to feel at times on this diet. But, especially in the evenings, a lot of people report that in the evening time is when it's the toughest, because most people, you come home from work, you're tired, and a lot of people have the habit of either maybe watching a few shows and eating something, or surfing online and eating something. And, for the most part, it involves some type of snacking combined with something else. So now you can't do that. And you have to find new things to do to feel productive, or basically make new habits. One thing that I did quite a bit on the protocol was to drink a lot of tea instead of eating. That was kind of like my the first stage in weaning myself off of eating all the time, was to drink a lot of tea. That really helped. There's all kinds of awesome teas out there, and I always put stevia in mine, and all kinds of yummy flavors and stuff like that. So when I was online surfing or watching a little show, I would just be drinking cup after cup after cup of tea, and it did help. It did help. Now, ideally, you want to eventually try to get to the point where you don't need to always be having something go in your mouth, you know, whether it's food or drink. And I actually amazingly feel like I've kind of gotten to that point. So learning to find other things aside from food that give you satisfaction and joy is gonna be a tool that you can use not just on HCG, but in the long term. So it is a good thing. HCG it's a perfect training ground for that, you know, because you're forced to find something other than food to get you through the day. And then you can use those tools that you're learning, carry those with you into phase 3 and phase 4, into life maintenance. And you know, the things that are going to be satisfying to you are going to be different, you know, than for other people. We're just all different. You know, for instance, I like to quilt. Actually, I made this quilt. I don't know if you can see it here. That's one of my hobbies, is quilting, and it's sewing. You know, I sew little suits for my son. I've always been kind of like an artsy craftsy person, and when I'm doing those types of things, it really kind of takes all of my mental capacity, and I don't think about food. Same thing when I go to CrossFit and I work out. I don't think about anything else while I'm working out. It's so hard, I can't think about anything else. And then after CrossFit, I feel so good and invigorated that I'm also not really thinking about food for a few hours after that. So, you know, for you, you might have to find out what calls to you, what types of things you enjoy doing that make you feel, just basically that you feel enamored with enough that you don't care about food for the time being, you know, that you're just like so into whatever you're working on. One thing that can be helpful in this regard while you're on the HCG diet, at least, is getting involved with the HCG diet community. Yes, there is a community. It's online. A lot of it is basically, you know, centered here on YouTube. And also there's a bit of a community on Facebook. Basically, what's so great about getting involved with other HCGers is because very few people are going to understand you doing this protocol. In fact, a lot of people might even oppose you. You know, no doubt many of you aren't really telling anyone that you're doing this diet. You know, you kind of want to wait and see the results so that you can prove to them that it really is safe and that it's really okay. And so because of that, you're kind of already a little more alienated than other dieters because you're not able to really talk about it as much. So tapping into the community online can just create a very supportive environment for you. There's a lot of people who are making videos of their HCG journey on YouTube. And you know, you can do that. I think it's a great idea if you can. If you feel too shy at this time to do that, that's okay. But one thing you can do still is watch other people's videos and comment on them and give them support. If you do decide to make your own videos, you know, put yourself out there, comment on other people's vlogs. They'll see you and they might subscribe back to you and they'll comment on your vlogs. And it can be really encouraging to get that kind of back and forth support on this diet from people who are doing the same thing as you. If you've been thinking about making HCG videos, but you're not sure, you know, or you're feeling kind of shy, I actually did make one blog post kind of showing you how to go about vlogging on YouTube, and I want to do some more how-to type tutorial posts on that in the future, because sometimes a lot of what's holding some of you guys back is just that you don't know how to do it, or you feel nervous. So I'm hoping to actually come up with a series of posts as time goes on to help alleviate those types of worries or concerns and kind of show you guys, you know, how to do it. You really actually do get used to talking to the camera. When I first started vlogging, I was really shy and nervous, and you can tell I'm talking really quietly, but after a little while, you realize, you know, when you're talking, like, hey, I'm talking to the HCG people out there, and it's after a while, it's really not a big deal. I actually do enjoy it now. So, you know, if you decide you're just too shy, no, I don't want to do videos, you know, that's totally fine. You know, watching the videos though can really help fill up time where you used to be eating. Or again, like I said, just finding something else to do that will take up your brain capacity and keep you distracted long enough so that you won't be, you know, thinking and being tortured by thoughts of food too frequently on the diet. The fourth practical way to deal with the harder mental aspect of this protocol is to take a little time out for yourself to stay refreshed. You know, I think a lot of people doing this protocol are women. Most of you out there watching me are probably either a mother or a grandmother. Many of you are working, and for all of you, you probably have very full schedules. You probably don't have a lot of downtime. You know, maybe you work full time and you have 4 kids, you know, or you have a husband who wants meat and potatoes every night. Sometimes because of all the other things that you have to do and all the other people that you have to take care of, maybe normally it's fine, maybe you even enjoy it, but when you're on this diet, all of a sudden it can make it quite difficult. It's almost like you're at odds with all these other things you need to do because the diet is so strict. That you can't eat the meat and potatoes that you're cooking for your husband and kids and it looks so good, or you worked all day and you didn't have time to plan your lunch in advance, and you get home and you're starving, and then you're cooking this dinner with oil in it, and you're like, man, what am I gonna eat because I want to eat. So, most of you are probably really, really busy, but if there's any way to take out even just small chunks of time for yourself that can help you keep that can help you stay centered, that can really help you get through the protocol. One of the things that I really like to do myself is to take hot showers. I don't know what it is about the water and the moisture and the hot of it, but I often take a shower not just to get clean. I take showers all the time. Anytime that I'm feeling really bad, I just take a long hot shower, and it's it's not like it makes all the problems go away, but it helps me to calm down and to stay somewhat centered, and just to get a small feeling of refreshment so that I don't just completely freak out, so that's one thing that helps me. The other thing that I like to do is I have a personal family blog, and I love processing photos, editing photos and putting them up on my family blog, and just looking at different memories through the years of experiences I've had with my family. I love to do that. I love just cuddling with my husband and my son in our bed. I love to just cuddle with them and just appreciate what I have in my life to be thankful for. And, so for you, there might be other things that make you feel relaxed. Maybe just reading a good book, And again, I recognize that some of you just don't hardly have any free time at all. But even just 15 minutes, like I said, when I go take my hot shower, it's probably 10 or 15 minutes, but it really does help me feel refreshed, and it kind of helps me keep going. So if you can find little things like that, that just realize that that's something that's small, but it could do a lot for you personally to help you get through this. The fifth practical thing that I want to mention was just that when the diet feels hard, remember that the feeling will pass. I would have to actually tell myself that sometimes. Certain days it feels almost unbearable. I hope I'm not like psyching you guys out. I'm not trying to make this sound extremely hard. It's just some days it really is. It really can be hard some days. So there were some days when it just felt like, if every day is going to be like this, there's no way I'm going to get through this diet for another 4 weeks or whatever. So I would have to remind myself that, you know what? Yes, it's hard today, and it might even be really super hard tomorrow, but it's not going to be that hard every day. That feeling will pass, and then it's going to feel easier. I have experienced, a whole week on the protocol where the diet actually felt easy. It was very easy to stick to, and I was busy, and I was taking care of things, and I felt good, and everything was fine. And so there's going to be plenty of times like that. So just reminding yourself when it's hard, you know what, this feeling is going to pass. I just have to wait it out. And when I wake up tomorrow or another day, it's going to feel easier again. And just tell yourself that. And that can help you stick it out, knowing that hopefully that feeling will soon pass. It's easy to wonder if you're going to make it through 6 weeks of the protocol, if you're going to feel this crappy every single day, So that's why it's important to recognize to yourself that just because you're feeling a certain way one day does not mean you're going to feel that same way the next day. Most of the time, barring other health reasons for not feeling well on the diet, most of the time it's going to feel easier on a future day. Usually when you don't feel good on HCG, you can attribute it to either overdoing it for the day, or perhaps having, carb or sugar withdrawals, and those can take a couple of days to subside. Those feelings, they will pass, I promise. Practical tip number 6 is lots of tea. We already talked about this, but lots and lots of tea with stevia. I can't tell you how many times that has been the thing to get me through an evening. Sometimes you can't avoid social situations on HCG, and it's at those times when you're sitting around with friends talking and maybe they're eating something. If you have your little mug of hot tea and it's, you know, whatever chocolate flavored tea, or there's some pretty awesome ones out there. Bengal Spice is Celestial Seasonings one. I actually have a video on different teas that I've used on P2 and I show you guys pictures of them and stuff. So I'll link to that in the blog post if you go to my website as well, so you can get some ideas. But you know, that can really help, just having that hot cup of tea in your hand and just sipping away at it, and you know that there's really no restriction on liquids and the use of stevia and liquids on P2, so you're safe with that. I hope you guys found that helpful. I know that this is a little bit long, but you know, for some of you guys who are newer out there, I know that you are hungry for information on how to do this properly and how to succeed. And you know, I don't know everything about this diet for sure. I don't know, you know, all the specific things that can make it possible for you to succeed, but I hope just at least by throwing out some ideas, you know, that have worked for myself and worked for others, it might, you know, help you decide what could work for you, and you can just try them out. So anyway, if you want to communicate with me, I am on Facebook. You can find my Facebook page. That's the best place to find me, HCGChica on Facebook. And if you ever have questions that you would like to see a video on in the future, please feel free to drop me a line, email me at hcgchica@hcgchica.com. I have a list of, you know, HCG vlogs to make, and I have a little list and I check them off as I do them. And so if you have ideas, please feel free to share for what you'd like to see a video on, because you know, to be honest, the majority of the videos I've been coming out with now are inspired by the questions that I get from you guys. So, and you know, it's really good that you do that, because then when I make a video, a lot of people can then, you know, get the answer. So I hope that helps you guys. Take care. Bye. And we'll talk more about that in future videos. There's something moving in the bushes over there, and I'm hoping it's just a bird. Or maybe a deer.